Considering the fact he comes from a Hollywood dynasty which was first built by his father Kirk, it should really come as no surprise Michael Douglas has turned into one of the biggest movie stars in the world. Of course, like his dad before him, Michael has regularly proven himself to be one of the best actors of his generation. But with so many great movies to choose from, it can be hard to narrow down the best ones to start with. That's why today, we're going to be looking at the top 10 Michael Douglas movies of all time.
Dan, can you hear me?
Number 10, Romancing the Stone.
I could have been a cosmetic surgeon. 500th hour a year, up to my neck in tits and ass. Romantic novelist, my ass.
By the time 1984 came around, Michael Douglas had already established himself as one of Hollywood's most well-respected up-and-coming actors. That said, it wouldn't be until he joined forces with Robert Zemeckis and Kathleen Turner for that year's Romancing the Stone that he really reached the next level. Yes, here, playing the role of Jack T. Colton, an American adventurer traversing Colombia in search of adventure, Douglas would get to show a whole new side of himself. And this side would be a lighter one as it happened, allowing him to play a romantic lead for the first time. Of course, it wasn't all acting. No, while filming their now famous dance scene, both Douglas and Turner would be unaware the cameras were rolling. Despite this though, feeling the take was perfect as it was, Zemeckis would choose to keep it in the finished product. Number 9, Ant-Man.
What do you want me to do?
I want you to break into a place and steal some shit.
With the arrival of the Marvel Cinematic Universe in 2008, every actor suddenly wanted to be a superhero. And that wasn't just because it allowed them to live out their childhood fantasies, but because they could also get a nice payday while they were at it. So when Michael Douglas got the chance to play the role of Hank Pym in 2015's Ant-Man then, he jumped at the chance. And that was because he was playing none other than the original Ant-Man himself, someone who was looking for a younger replacement to take up his old moniker. But what made this one even more special was that Douglas actually got to celebrate his 70th birthday while on set. In fact, the crew would go as far as to make a cake for him for the occasion, one decorated in icing made to look like ants crawling over a film reel.
The way I see it, you have a choice. You can either spend the rest of your life in prison or go back to your cell and await further instructions.
Number 8, Fatal Attraction.
I've got scotch, I've got vodka, I just know Chablis in the...
Cut this shit, will you? Just cut it!
When it was released in 1987, Fatal Attraction was arguably the biggest hit Michael Douglas had ever been in, but given how engrossing the story was, this should come as no surprise. Still, here, playing the role of Dan Gallagher, a New York attorney who has an affair with the wrong woman, Douglas got the chance to add an extra bit of magic to what was an already great script. And even if he would have some difficult scenes alongside his co-star, Glenn Close, the two would become good friends behind the camera. Of course, the same couldn't be said for Ellen Latson, the actress who played his young daughter. And that's because, in an attempt to get her to cry for one scene, he threatened to throw away her stuffed toy. Sure, he did later apologize for this, but even after doing so, he'd feel guilty about it for the rest of the shoot.
Now you just want a quiet life.
Why are you doing this?
Doing what?
You need help.
Don't tell me what I need.
You need to shrink.
Number 7, Basic Instinct.
That means you manipulate people too, Beth. You're a practicing psychologist. You're better at it than she is.
Few movies have ever managed to become a pop culture phenomenon in the same way that Basic Instinct became upon its release in 1992. And while part of the reason for this was the very sensual performance given by Sharon Stone, Michael Douglas also played his part in its success too. Yes, taking on the role of a detective desperately trying to solve the murder of a wealthy rock star, Douglas has to give it his all in this Paul Verhoeven-directed classic. But it seems like there was an ulterior motive behind him taking a part in such a sexually charged film. And that was because, with it happening at the height of the AIDS epidemic, he was concerned that sex scenes were at risk of disappearing from cinemas if someone didn't do something to stop it soon.
You sold her my file, didn't you?
Who are you talking about?
Catherine Trammell. How much did she pay you?
Number 6, Wonder Boys.
Shit, James. You shot Dr. Gaskell's dog.
I had to, didn't I?
Well, you could have pulled him off me.
It may not be his biggest hit, but in the years since its release, Wonder Boys has developed a bit of a cult classic status amongst fans of Michael Douglas's work. And that's because as the story in this one continues to spiral out of control in increasingly comedic fashion, he gets to show off another new side to himself, a funny one. How does he do this? Well, as Professor Grady Tripp, an English teacher struggling to finish his second novel, he's only too happy to go with the flow as things get worse and worse for him. And while we won't give away any spoilers here, we will say don't let the marketing of this film put you off. No, ignore the pretty terrible campaign which was largely blamed for the film bombing in the first place. So bad was this, in fact, a poster featuring a close-up of Douglas's face would be mocked in the LA Times as they said it made him look like Elmer Fudd.
Get out of the car! Hey!
Go around him.
I'm stopping you!
Number 5. Wall Street.
He's giving lectures on how to lose money. Jesus Christ, if this guy owned a funeral parlor, no one would die. This turkey is totally brain dead.
You could make a solid argument that Wall Street's Gordon Gekko is the most iconic role Michael Douglas has ever played. And given the amount of legendary characters he's given us over the course of his career, that's saying something. But then, after watching 5 minutes of his portrayal of the sleazy stockbroker who acts as a mentor to Charlie Sheen's Bud Fox, it's easy to see why the role is so beloved. Of course, this wouldn't be the only character Douglas was juggling inside his head at this time though, and that's because as he was working on this one, he'd simultaneously be filming Fatal Attraction 2, with producers allowing him to alternate between sets so as to do both in tandem.
Is going down, okay? I want to know where he goes and what he sees. I want you, pal, to fill out the missing picture.
Number 4. The China Syndrome.
An accident in a nuclear power plant.
I don't know that accident is the right word.
Accident is the right word. I see to make you.
At the time the China Syndrome was released, many saw it as a warning of what could happen in the future if we weren't careful with our nuclear technology. What they didn't realize though was that, just days after the film hit the public, the 3 Mile Island incident would make it all feel a little too real. But of course, none of this takes away from the excellent performance from Michael Douglas here as Richard Adams, a member of a news crew investigating a nuclear power plant and their lax safety measures. That said, Douglas was never originally meant to act in the film. No, he was at first going to be a producer only, but he had to step in when Richard Dreyfuss was forced to pull out at the last minute.
Bullshit. It's just all bullshit. Don't kick me under the table. I'm not gonna shut up.
Oh, Richard, come on.
Now look, have you seen what they officially released?
Number 3. Traffic.
Where are they? Where the hell are the drugs? Where are they?
Steven Soderbergh's 2000 hit Traffic is really more of an ensemble piece, one which explores the illegal drug trade from a number of different perspectives. That said, if there is a star of the show, then it's Michael Douglas in his portrayal of Ohio Judge Robert Wakefield. And that's because every scene he's in stands out, especially those where he has to deal with the reality of his own daughter being addicted to heroin. But it's what happened off camera which Douglas should really be remembered for in this one. What did he do? Well, upholding the law just like his character, he'd actually chase down a thief who stole a woman's purse on set and hold them until police could arrive and take him away.
Seth has to be excused. He's going on a field trip.
Number 2. Falling Down.
Says all that?
Yeah.
Maybe wrote it in fucking English, I could fucking understand it.
It was controversial at the time of its release, and it remains controversial to this day, but 1993's Falling Down is still one of the greatest Michael Douglas performances ever. And that's because playing the role of William Foster here, a put-upon middle-aged office worker, you can feel his rage bubbling over in every scene. Yes, it's a truly palpable performance, and so, when he finally blows and goes on a rampage throughout the city, you're almost on his side. So maybe this is why, when later asked about what his favorite performance of all time was, Douglas would list this as his own personal number 1. Our number 1 pick is The Game.
Write this number down. Good luck and congratulations on choosing C.R. Press.
By 1997, almost 30 years into his career, Michael Douglas was able to prove he still had a lot left to give when he wowed everyone with his performance in the David Fincher film, The Game. But what makes this one stand out so much is the way Douglas is forced to sell the increasingly crazy goings-on throughout its runtime. And the reason it gets so crazy is because, playing the role of a wealthy investment banker, he has to journey through a bizarre and often dangerous live-action game his brother has signed him up for. And, as it happens, his moody, tormented performance can at least partially be put down to what he was going through in his personal life at the time. Yes, while filming this movie, Douglas would be working through a real-life divorce to his first wife, Deandra Luker. Looking at the film's ratings, we find that The Game received a solid 7.7 out of 10 on IMDb.com and a less impressive 61 from Metacritic. Rotten Tomatoes, on the other hand, would like it a lot better, giving it a 78% on the tomato meter with an even higher score of 84% given by the audience.
Why are you following me?
What are you talking about? I'm not following you, I'm just driving it.
And there we have it, the top 10 Michael Douglas movies of all time. No doubt you have your own list, so be sure to let us know in the comments below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and get alerted of our next video. We'll hope to see you soon!